Mufasa ruled a peaceful kingdom but failed to stop Scar's betrayal. After Mufasa's death, Simba spent years living in the jungle, ignoring his duties as prince. And is Kion even comparable to Simba and Mufasa, considering he is too young and his main leadership took place outside the Pride Lands, in the Tree of Life? Let's compare all three generations in today's video. Before we can decide who is the better leader, we need to agree on what that even means, so we know we're judging them fairly. A better leader is the one who has decision-making skills, who can fight with enemies like Scar, Zira, Janja's hyenas, and who doesn't misuse power. We'll look at who made the toughest calls, who grew the most from their mistakes, and who left a kingdom stronger than they found it. So we'll judge them based on their wisdom, crisis management, compassion, sacrifices, and legacy. But if one of these kings failed on even one of these points, their entire legacy might not be as perfect as you think. First, what do we mean by wisdom and decision-making? A wise leader thinks ahead, keeps people safe, and makes choices that help the whole kingdom, not just themselves. For example, let's begin with Mufasa. He thinks like a teacher and a ruler, shows Simba how the circle of life works, and makes calm choices in front of others so they trust him. When the stampede happened, Mufasa ran into danger to save Simba. That proves he acts fast to protect his pride. But Mufasa also trusted Scar too much. Scar tricked him and used a plot Mufasa did not see coming. So Mufasa is wise and brave. His choices teach and protect. But he overlooked one big threat, his own brother. Now, let's move to Simba. He makes big, brave moves, but he also runs away. After Mufasa died, Simba left the Pride Lands and hid for years. That was a decision that let Scar rule and hurt many animals. Later, Simba came back, fought Scar, and saved the kingdom. In Simba's pride, he is quick to judge outsiders and almost starts a new war. He protects his family, but he is slow to make smart, peaceful choices early on. Simba is bold in a crisis. He is not always calm or careful before problems start. And if we talk about Kion, he listens to his team and uses people's strengths. When danger comes, Kion plans with the Lion Guard. He uses tricks and talk when it helps. Kion also faces dark tests within himself. He chooses the right path and keeps the group safe. His choices are about teamwork, smart moves, and peace. So who is better at decision making? It depends on the kind of leader you want. If you want calm wisdom and a clear moral compass, Mufasa is the top choice. If you want quick thinking, strong alliances, and real teamwork, Kion is the best leader. And if you want bravery and chaos, Simba wins. So you can now judge who is better at wisdom and decision making, but thinking is just the first step. A better leader is truly revealed when fear takes over, when enemies attack, when there's no time to plan. This is where we see who steps up and who falls apart. Let's begin with Mufasa and see how he faced his greatest crisis. Mufasa is the king you want when disaster strikes. The stampede in the gorge proves it best when hyenas trapped Simba and Nala in the elephant graveyard. Mufasa rushed in without fear, saved them first, and then tried to escape himself. Even in his last moments, he thinks of his son, not himself. That shows his leadership in a crisis is clear and brave. But sadly, he never gets a chance to rebuild after a disaster and dies, leaving others to deal with the mess. Simba's crisis begins when Mufasa dies and the crown falls on him before he's ready. Initially, he fails at crisis management because Simba's crisis is more personal, involving guilt and fear. At first, he fails at this because he runs away instead of facing his pride, and the kingdom suffers under Scar's rule. Over time, Simba redeems himself. But the most interesting part is when Nala finds him and calls for help. Simba goes back, gathers Timon, Pumbaa, and Rafiki's wisdom. And this time, he does not just win the fight, he restores balance in the Pride Lands. But this is not the end of his crisis. In the season, Simba's Pride, he faces another disaster, Zira's attack. Simba almost lets fear of outsiders start a war, then Kiara steps in. She helps him find peace at the end. This shows Simba's ability to handle enemies in crises. Kion, on the other hand, faces crisis almost every day as the leader of the Lion Guard. He handles many disasters like hyenas attacks, rogue elephants breaking the circle of life, and even the return of Scar's ghost army. Yet, through all of this, Kion shows something important. He stays calm under pressure, trusts his team, and uses their unique skills, such as Bunga's bravery, Beshte's strength, Fuli's speed, and Ono's sharp eyes. But this is what makes Kion unique from Mufasa and Simba. When Ushari's venom curses his roar and anger starts to control him, he does something unbelievable. He leaves the Pride Lands and goes to the Tree of Life to heal. That was a risky move, but it saved him from becoming a danger to his pride. This is how Kion proves that he can still win in severe crises. So, if we think about who survived the best in crises, all three had their unique points. Who do you vote for in terms of handling enemies and managing crises? I want to see your thoughts in the comments. But leadership is not about fighting with enemies. The hardest test comes after the battle. So, a true leader must know when to fight and when to forgive. This is where a new test comes in. Mufasa's sympathy is quiet but powerful. In the very first Lion King, he explains the circle of life to Simba. Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance. As a king, you need to understand that balance and respect all the creatures. Even with Scar, Mufasa is patient. He doesn't banish him, even though Scar is openly jealous. Now, some of you might say Mufasa's mercy is his downfall. Yes, but it also proves he leads with a forgiving heart. But the question is, did the king who came after him live up to that same standard? Now let's look at Simba, whose compassion takes longer to grow. After taking the throne back, he rules strictly. In Simba's pride, we see that he does not trust the outsiders, Zira's pride, even though they are still lions. His lack of diplomacy almost starts a second war. At the very end, when Zira dies and Kiara stops the fight, Simba listens to his daughter and invites the outsiders, like Kovu, Vitini, and the surviving lionesses to rejoin the Pride Lands. This is Simba's biggest moment of compassion. He breaks the cycle of hate that started with Scar and lets peace win. Simba's diplomacy is slow to come, but when it does, it changes everything. But where Simba learns compassion later, Kion carries it from the very beginning. Where others see enemies, Kion sees possible friends. He talks to Janja the hyena when everyone expects him to fight. Moreover, Kion earns something even Mufasa never does. He earns Jasiri's trust and creates peace between lions and hyenas. But years later, this mystery returns in such a way that no one can expect. In Season 3's Battle for the Pride Lands, Janja finally betrays Scar and helps Kion. This isn't luck, it's the result of Kion's long-term diplomacy. What seems risky becomes the key to victory. But Janja is not the only professor. Kion shows the same kind of wisdom much earlier with the crocodiles. Back in Season 1, The Rise of Maku. When Maku challenges the old crocodile leader, Kion's team wants him to interfere. But Kion respects crocodile tradition and allows Mako to lead. At first, Mako rules harshly, but over time, he grows into a fair leader and even aids the Pride Lands. It's a quiet form of diplomacy that proves effective. But leadership always comes with a cost. It's never about the throne you sit on or the crown you wear. It's about what you're willing to lose. Simba, Mufasa, and Kion each faced moments that defined their leadership, but their sacrifices and the legacies they built were as different as their paths to the crown. Mufasa's sacrifice wasn't just the moment he fell into the gorge, but his sacrifice was every single day he sat on the throne. Every sunrise meant his duty. He guarded the circle of life, kept peace between predator and prey, and raised a future king who wasn't ready to lead yet. But duty didn't end with the land. It extended into his own family. And that's where the greatest test of his leadership came. Scar. Mufasa knew his brother was dangerous. He saw the bitterness, heard the sarcasm, and felt the disrespect. And yet he never struck back. He kept giving Scar a chance to do the right thing. That was Mufasa's trust that his own brother wouldn't betray him. But Scar was playing a longer game. By the time Mufasa realized how deep Scar's jealousy ran, it was too late. That's what makes Mufasa's death so haunting. It wasn't just a king losing his life, it was a brother's trust being shattered forever. And that shattering didn't end with Mufasa. It passed on to Simba. For Simba, the cost was personal. As a cub, he believed in a simple future to grow up, become king, and live in peace. But Mufasa's death destroyed that dream. Scar didn't just take the throne, he took away Simba's belief in himself. When Scar blamed him for Mufasa's death, Simba didn't argue. He believed the lie, and with that guilt, he gave up his carefree life in the jungle to face the pain of his past. That choice is huge. He risked his own safety to take back Pride Rock. But deep down, he knew he couldn't run forever. And when he finally returned, he had not just Scar to face. It was the pain, the fear, and the guilt he had carried for years. Simba's sacrifice was his innocence. He lost his childhood and carried the burden of guilt no cub should bear. Meanwhile, Kion's sacrifice was different. It wasn't about himself. It was about everyone else. When Ushari's venom struck, it poisoned his entire body and messed with his mind. Kion began to doubt himself. His power felt dangerous, and even his friends became afraid of him. Every day, he fought a battle no one else could see. He could have stepped down. He could have given up the roar, but he didn't. He kept leading even when it hurt, even when his own power worked against him. And then came the moment that changed everything. Kion chose to leave home. He left the Pride Lands because he had to heal, and he understood that his mission was bigger than one kingdom. So he left his family, his home, everything he knew, and went to the Tree of Life. There, he built a new future from nothing. He didn't inherit a kingdom, he created one himself. So now you've seen the difference. Mufasa ruled with balance, Simba ruled with tradition, and Kion broke tradition to build something entirely new. And now I'd love to hear from you. Which choice do you think would save the Pride Lands? The one who held the circle of life, the one who restored it, or the one who redefined it? Share your thoughts in the comments.